No one wanted this ending, so let's just say it. Not only does the heavyweight division remain on ice as far as moving the title picture forward, but Tom Aspinall's insane bad luck really only continued when you consider the knee injury he came back from, the John Jones soap opera, the 15 months off heading into this fight. Now he had Ciryl Gane poking holes through both of his orifices, knuckle deep at least on one of them. But it's also created some knee-jerk narratives from the idea that maybe Aspinall could have continued or should have from some tough guys. Also to the idea that it was Gane on his way to beating him. From what we saw in round one, it was only 4+ minutes of action. Either way, Gane succeeded in checking the prostate of Aspinall through that eye socket. And for a fight in which very little took place, Luke Thomas, what is the biggest takeaway for you? Because I see some saying Tom's a bitch. I see some saying Gane was on his way to becoming heavyweight champion. I see a lot of other people talking about how do we change this eye-poking culture. What do you come out of this fight with as the first and foremost thing we learned?
I mean, the problem is there's many really important ones. Just as a note, we were talking about this before the show. There's a lot of criticism when MMA media is not sufficiently reverential of fighters. But I think an episode like this goes to show you nobody is meaner to the fighters than, not all the fans, obviously, but a pretty noticeable section of them. And I don't think it's in any way accidental that we've got a rise of content creators who are also mean and nasty to the fighters. It's just very funny that like the fans pressuring media, who are the traditional media, who are the nicest ones of the entire group, to fighters to be nicer by the people who are actually meaner. Very funny. Okay. Putting that aside, this only magnified heavyweights' various but now intersecting problems. The event and the main event, BC, was designed to be something of a page turner.
Yes.
We can say goodbye to all of the problems where John Jones has it. He's not active. We've been over it a million times. But even more than that, Francis leaves. We hadn't had a UFC title defense at heavyweight by a sitting champion in literally years. Okay?
What, John Stipe?
No, long before that. Long before that. But
well, John was sitting.
Francis gone.
Yeah.
Francis gone. That because John Stipe was for a vacant title. This is a title defense by a reigning champion.
No, John had already gotten the title against Gane. Then he missed a year plus due to injury. He defended against Stipe. But
I guess.
But the point being that it was still incomplete because Ngannou had walked away and Aspinall was the interim champ. So.
Yes. So the point I'm trying to make is there was just a lot of problems that had been kind of lingering and themselves falling on top of each other. This event was designed, even if we got a Gane win, it wouldn't have mattered. It at least would have been a page turner to all of that. And instead, all it ended up doing was magnifying the various problems, because now you've got a case where the reigning champion had do you want to call it a poor showing? It wasn't a great showing. I mean,
the degree of whether it was his fault and how
it's so limited that you're a little bit couched in that.
But
it wasn't a great showing.
Somebody wins round one and then goes on to lose the rest of the way. But
100%.
But it was look at the very least, it piques more interest in the rematch. Even though the rematch is a headache for UFC and Dana White said it as much, it piques more interest.
Okay,
but
it does.
For Tom Aspinall, it's another disaster. And I got to be fair. Tom Aspinall posted in live streams from his doctor's visit this morning. I know the intention that he tried to do. It doesn't help him. It doesn't make him look good. And I'm not one of these people that's saying he's a quitter. I'm just saying if you're already on that side of the line, he's giving you more ammo of things that should be behind the curtain, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, let's just finish the point, though. But now what it ends up doing is, because it left such a dissatisfying taste in everyone's mouth, it brings more scrutiny onto the division.
Yes.
And in which case, and this isn't, again, I want to be clear about this. This is not an exclusive issue to UFC by any stretch of the imagination. It used to be the case where you could say, well, Pride had a better heavyweight division than UFC, but then they merged, and of course the whole thing in general got a lot better. This is a case where you're looking around, you're saying, who else could you even add to this division to make a difference? You're still stuck in the same gear you were in prior to 321 about getting some kind of resolution to this last chapter. It is unfortunate, and we can talk about ways it could have gone or should have gone. But my biggest takeaway is, BC, this was supposed to be goodbye, and it was simply a reintroduction.
Yeah. And if Aspinall would have come through with the win, which we obviously don't know what would have happened, it's bringing some level of intrigue to the rematch, it at least would have hopefully answered some of the questions more that we had about Tom, despite his great success, and maybe pushed Tom over for all the people that said, hey, maybe I'm not a hardcore MMA fan these days, but who's this guy that forced John Jones to walk away? Well, we saw that guy, and that guy had a bloody nose and 2 fingers into his orifice. We can't show the video, of course, but let's just look at the still picture just to see what we're up against.
Yeah, not great.
So you can see the left eye of Tom, which is on the right side of the screen. That's the one where the finger went literally knuckle deep. He wasn't joking when he was complaining about being booed. But it seems to be his right eye is the one that created more damage. He's wearing a bandage over his right eye during the hospital visit that he put on social media early this morning.
I have a theory about that.
I mean, dude, that's legit. That's freaking legit.
Yeah, I have a theory about that. The one that went in further, it almost went just straight, whereas the one on his right, it did not appear anyway, to go as deep, but it swiped.
Yes.
And I wonder if that action of going, laterally scratched it in some kind of way.
We got a quick, this was Daniel Cormier cage side after the pay-per-view ended, after he had ran into Aspinall, just to set the stage of what it was like there at the scene right after this foul.
I saw Tom Aspinall. His right eye is covered in a bandage because he cannot open it still. We're 20 minutes past the fight ending. And what's crazy about that is his other eye was the one where his hand went knuckle deep. The right side was scraped down more. The left side was the one that went knuckle deep and really would have been hard to deal with if not for the pain he was seeing on the other side. Tom was very upset that people were booing. And then people saw the replay and were like, wait a minute, maybe we should be booing the other guy. Then they booed Ciryl Gane.
So, Luke, I have to say I'm more, just to begin with, on DC side. It's obviously the worst case scenario that a fight would end without us capitalizing on the opportunity to move the division along and learn things. But I don't see how you can watch the slow-mo of what Tom went through and then take the aggressive stance that a loud minority is starting to take. And it's not just keyboard warriors, right? It's legitimate fighters with legitimate backgrounds. So this has got a little bit serious enough where we did have to bring in our friends from Cuervo to serve it, to settle this with a little something that we call shots fired. And Shots Fired is brought to you by Cuervo. Now is a good time to enjoy the tequila that invented tequila. Luke, we have Anthony Smith and Chael Sonnen, 2 former title challengers, legit badasses.
This turned out to be quite controversial.
It did, but here are they on the ESPN post-game show taking a stance that some fans maybe that bet and didn't cash in took online, but not a lot of fighters, though, were dunking on Tom, but maybe not to this degree. Let's listen.
Affect his legacy, his fault or not.
Well, don't be mad at me. You had a job to do, and you, for whatever reason, you guys did whatever you did, and you didn't do your job. I'm not saying it's Tom's fault, and I'm not gonna, pretend that I know how bad it is or isn't. I think Chael made a poetic point that you have to be used to or willing to fight with one eye. I did it in Singapore. Everyone talks about it all the time, where the ladies waving stuff in front of my eyes. I can't see it, so what do? I just walk away and say, let's fight. You just you either want to or you don't. And my fight wasn't for a world title. I didn't have Ciryl Gane in front of me throwing bombs. But the second that there was an issue, I knew that I wanted to continue, so I know what to say. You never say I can't see if you want to continue to fight. So when they ask the question, you just nod your head and you just walk away. You find a way to get away from the doctor. If you want to fight, you can fight.
My trainer, Coach Clayton, when we'd be practicing, every now and then he would yell out to the whole room, close your left eye. And then he'd open your left eye, close your right eye later. He'd say, don't breathe through your nose anymore, breathe through your mouth. And the idea was if your eye gets swollen and it gets shut, or if your nose gets clogged and you can't breathe, that you're kind of used to these things. Tom said something, and look, we got to dwell on a guy in a really bad moment, but to dwell on him, he said, I got poked in the eye, I can't see. If you got poked in the eye and you're injured, we have a totally different conversation. If you get poked in the eye and you can't see, generally in our sport, that's just something.
Sounded like James Caan's speech in the movie The Program, the college football one. You're either hurt, you're injured. But Luke, it's one thing. Look, DC poked the shit out of Stipe in their title fight. DC's been poked really badly in big fights. It's one thing if one eye gets affected. Dude, this is straight up both of them. Is this a acceptable stance from ex-fighters to say, sorry, you got to fight through that? Anything can happen.
I would imagine on some level, I think there's probably a little something to it for sure. I mean, they're right? You're going to have circumstances where it could be the first punch of the night, right? You get a jab and it breaks your nose. And now what are you going to do?
But that is a legal shot.
Understanding, but it's you might have 10 fights in your career, let's say, and your 11th fight, someone breaks your nose. And now where are you? You're in a place where you have to adjust to a reality, or you could get hit with something and your vision is obstructed. It's a legal punch and now you have to just kind of adapt to a situation if you want to win. That is clearly true. To me, that is, I think it is important to be able to say, if you're a fighter, you have the physical durability and the mental fortitude in very difficult and sometimes, let's just call it, unfair circumstances to persevere just by sheer will alone. I can appreciate that instinct and the ability to do that. However, I just feel like we're talking about a somewhat different circumstance here.
It's not a regular fight night. This is the heavyweight championship when you've been forced to sit out for 15 months.
Yeah. I
and
mean,
then you
the fight that Smith is referencing is a fight against Ryan Spann. He won via split decision, and credit to him, that was a tough thing to do. But the stakes and the difficulty of the opponent are nowhere near a heavyweight title fight, even as we granted the division is somewhat diminished. More to the point, like, I'll be honest with you, if you can't actually see and you're in a UFC title fight, it is irrational to keep going. Could you show your toughness if you really wanted to as a way to gut through and maybe get a win? Yeah, of course it is. But like, if someone told you at the beginning of the fight, we're going to cover your eye and now you have to compete. And by the way, a reason we're going to cover it is because someone fouled you and now you have to deal with these circumstances. This is not something anyone would ever agree to. This is, you got someone, again, we could talk about the intentionality of it and to what extent that is relevant. I'm pointing out the stakes are too high. The give up is too much. It is irrational to keep going in a situation of this magnitude with this kind of injury. I'm going to take him at his word about the severity. Sure. If you want to have the highest level of excellence in the sport, we should make a point here. I don't think Tom Aspinall quit. I don't want to be clear. I don't think he did that. But I got to be honest, like, even if he did, so what? Hear me out on this. George St. Pierre, these are all different circumstances, meaningfully different. But George St. Pierre, when he got bodied by Matt Serra in their first fight, he tapped to strikes. People think it was a TKO stoppage because if you don't notice it, he leans over and taps the mat and calls it a day. Like, this idea that this inherently makes you a quitter for all time clearly is not true. There's really no evidence to show, certainly in his further career, that ended up being a thing. More to the point, he saved himself from further damage in a situation. Now, that was different because that fight was already lost and wasn't a foul. But I'm pointing out, people surrender in MMA all the time for reasons that are, to varying degrees, strategic. I don't think Tom did that. But even if he did, under the fouling circumstance, it's not a big departure from other instances of surrender that we just take as a given.
I got you. Also, it was both eyes. And I get when Anthony Smith is saying, you'll find a way to let them believe that you can see and continue. But what if you literally can't see? I wonder if Ciryl Gane did not have the success he had, and shout out to Ciryl Gane, because come the day before, the fight, all of us that make predictions for whatever they're worth, we're like, I just can't talk myself into Gane even going the distance here. Gane put that on his shoulders, fought very well, bloodied the nose of Tom. Luke, if he had not had that success, would we hear the same people leaning towards the quit angle here? If Tom wasn't, because I see people saying, before the eye poke, you could see he's breathing out of his mouth. He's gassed. He didn't expect Gane to be this good. Whether that's all true or not, the fact that it's there, I think gives people the liberty and luxury to lean toward the, oh, come on, he quit line.
Yeah, I would say there's just no denying the fact that Gane, relative to expectations, overperformed, clearly has made the situation worse, right? In terms of the perception anyway. Gane was doing well. And to your point, blooded up his nose. The jab was landing. He actually landed a couple of lead hooks off on that open stance. He looked good.
And he was bigger, too. Did you notice his
he
chest?
Was bigger. He was moving fluidly. His takedown defense looked good. Although I went back and I watched the takedown attempt. It wasn't a super, he didn't.
Tom flashed the takedown, but he didn't commit.
Yeah. He didn't wasn't the best effort he ever gave. But the point is, you're asking a question, did the way in which Gane performed, again, and I'm going to add a little nuance, especially relative to expectations, is that affecting some of the post-fight narrative? There's just no question in my mind.
I think it's unfair, though. Overall, I think it's unfair. It's 2 fingers in the eye. It's early in the fight. There's a lot of things going on here. And I think you have to take into account the story that Tom had up to this point. Having to wait to prove himself. All this stuff. It was like all this shit was against him. I don't know. Title fights are different. I don't know. Like when you're taking away, man can't see, can't fight. Terry Silver taught us that in Karate Kid part.
Yeah, that's true.
The Quicksilver method.
But the other part too is like it also robs Tom to a degree here because let's say Gane wins the first round. The round was almost over. Fine. But then Tom finds a way to start building momentum in round 2 and then gets a stoppage in round 3. This would have been a triumphant moment for him. It is robbed from him. And now you've got, I don't know what the number is, but there's enough of a vocal, whether it's a minority or majority of people saying, hey, Tom quit, Tom's this, that, and the other.
A lot of pro fighters coming out and saying
Yeah, I understand. Again, I understand them trying to police the ranks around toughness to a degree. Again, to a degree, I understand that. But I'm just pointing out, you've got all of this pressure, whoever it's coming from, raining down on Tom. And to your point now he seems to, maybe he's overcompensating to a degree, like with the kind of medical validation.
Dude, he should not be showing a full video of his hospital breakdown, a full video of trying to talk to the doctor and say, should this fight have been stopped? That should not be shown publicly. I don't even think the argument Tom and his dad made during that video of like, look, the fight should have been a DQ. The ref had warned him. There's a whole separate discussion, and I hope we have time to have it, about how you change this moving forward. But I think that just looks bad when people are already saying stuff about you, and then you come out and be like, well, he should have been disqualified anyway.